we're told of a story where there was a beggar who was begging in the streets of that city. And every now and then, the guy would be picked up by the cops and put in a beggar home. He would escape from that after a few days, go back to his life of begging. And what was his life of begging? Sometimes he would get a bonus. Someone would come and say, it's my birthday today, so I give you 1,000 rupees. And at other times, more often, he would get shunned and insulted and thrown away. Suddenly, one fine day, the cops caught him, and this time, they didn't take him to a beggar's home, they took him to the palace. And the first thing they did was a DNA test on him. And suddenly they realized that here was the king, missing king that we were looking for. So what had happened was, 20 years ago, it was a small kingdom. There was a tremendous flood, heavy rains, and everyone got washed off and drowned, except the heir to the kingdom, who was a little child and an infant, 3-month-old infant. The governess, in her wisdom, decided that even if I'm going to die, the rest of us die, let this future king survive. So she put that infant in a basket, which was floating, and that allowed the basket to float away. This beggar was that infant. And the people around knew that the heir to the kingdom was still alive. So there was a statewide search for him. And when they picked him up, they did a DNA test and realized that he was the king. So after all, he was blue-blooded. He got into his role effortlessly and became an outstanding king. On the anniversary of his coronation, he took a little plastic bag and gave his security guards the slip and went, changed his clothes into the beggar clothes that he had kept very carefully in a safe, and went back to the same street in which he was begging for 20 years. He put on his beggar clothes and started begging. And he went through the same experiences that he went through before. But there was a huge difference. What was the difference? Who is he now? King. Who was he a year ago? Also king. Then what's the difference? Knowledge. Now he is king. He knows he is king. Therefore, the same experiences. Imagine, as king, he owns the whole thing. So when he goes begging, whether people give him money or not, it doesn't take away anything from his assets. His assets remain the same. His mental state remains the same. Irrespective of what his experiences are, positive or negative, he is in the same state of enjoyment, amusement, enthrallment. Because he knows he's king. A year ago, he was king. He was still king. But he did not know that he was king. And this ignorance of his kingship made him a slave to the experiences that he was going through. So the masters tell us that you don't need to build inner reserves. You are already king. You are king of the universe. You are that infinite state. But for some strange, inexplicable reason, you don't know it, and it is this ignorance of your kingship that makes you a beggar in the world. And all of us go out into the world, morning to night, birth to death, as beggars. Isn't that so? You wake up in the morning and you're begging for sense objects for your body, emotions for your mind, ideas and ideologies for your intellect, not knowing that you are the king. So they tell us, continue with what you're doing. Just as that beggar Whether he is in the palace in his royal clothes or he is in the street begging, it doesn't make any difference. What made a difference is knowledge of his kingship. So as you are, where you are, all you have to do is gain knowledge of who you really are. Once you know that, you will continue living in the world exactly like you did before, with one major difference. You will cease to be a beggar. Today, when you go home, think, reflect. Why am I begging at the doors of the world for enjoyment, for fulfillment, for satisfaction, when I am already king? Therefore, knowledge is of the essence.